I start with that, I just give a short introduction because there was a change, and I'm coming more from a developer side, so I'm a pretty technical person, I would say. So I worked as a web developer, and I'm very much into O365, Microsoft technologies, and Azure, and all these things. And during that work last year that I did on Schindler with the team, with the SharePoint team, I changed the company in between. So now it's Tuleva, but the project was completely for me as a Schindler employee. So I switched in January this year. Just for the company now, what we do is, that's what also my new job is to work with Azure and so-called application lifecycle management that deals with everything that has to do with automation of installing software and anything. And that is what I do in this company here. So we have just a small consultancy, 40 employees that are located mainly in Hamburg and the new branch in Berlin that I start here also developing. And this company also has some projects still with Schindler, and the one project is a bit with the one use case connected to also the evaluation that I'm going to present here. But first, about Schindler. I have a small question to all of you. I just want to ask, who in the company you work with, who has more than 100 employees in this company? Just raise your hand. Okay. Is there still somebody with more than 1,000 employees? Is it more than 10,000 even? Okay. Okay, so quite a lot. Okay, then government is always different. Yeah. So, but that is connected to why the evaluation was a bit more complex, because Schindler is globally 58,000 users, and they're all running on O365 and SharePoint, and they're all working very scattered all over the world and every continent and in multiple countries. Just for the background, Schindler was founded in 1874, and the first branch was in Germany more than 100 years ago. And I worked in the IT department, of course, but the IT department was independently organized in our own company under Schindler, and that was called Schindler Digital Business specifically, and that's where this evaluation took part in. And Schindler also makes huge changes. They went from Lotus Notes, IBM Lotus Notes, to Microsoft and everything. And there were a lot of migrations, a lot of changes. So the paradigm shift from some older technologies to more agile, more flexibility, and also more standardization. So less customization. And that's also together with changes in IoT for elevators and escalators. And there is a new product I just invented, is Excalators. That doesn't exist, of course. It's just a spelling mistake. And also Schindler is looking into the topic of smart buildings. So there is a lot of involved that needs to work together. And to be more specific, there was a motivation behind this evaluation. Since I said 58,000 employees, and there are also around 8,000 to 10,000 more consultants working together with Schindler, so the huge amount of persons need to work together, and departments need to have some application line of business applications. They need to create things, and our team cannot be responsible, of course, for creating all those applications. We were a team around, like with administrators and operations and developers, maybe 20 people with architects, and we cannot take care of 58,000 users. They all want to have in their department maybe an application that runs on Azure or on O365 or on-premise servers. So we needed to have a way to standardize development. That's the broad picture. That means not just for the PDF conversion solution, but that means for any solution. So we needed to have a standardization to give guidelines out to them to make it in a way possible that they use one tool and one tool only that we know, because when they develop an application and we don't know what they're using inside, for example, in a PDF SDK, we're not sure if it's good. And also that's not standardized when every application uses their own PDF SDK server or anything like this. It comes down to branding, it comes down to corporate identity and all these things. So and usually when every application would use their own PDF library, they need to change how the library generates documents if something changes from the top down in the company. Also, that comes within that we need centralization. So we would rather have a service that these applications that want to convert PDFs or create PDFs have a centralized point that we can take care of. So to more specifically, you have the applications, you have one layer in between, and then you have the PDF server or the PDF solution behind. So, and we wanted to be inside, between that, the application and the server, to take care of how the application could consume our service, so that we also independently from the solution in the backend, especially the PDF solution. And within that, there also comes the flexibility. So that means that the application later on doesn't need to care what kind of PDF solution is used behind. They care more just how do I get my PDF. And also one thing that we put in there that we also figured out is that it's billable. That means, of course, when we have like 20 different departments and 100 applications using our PDF service, we want to know who used when, what, and how much. Since this is hosted in our department, it doesn't matter if the cloud or on-premise, that we want to make sure how much the how much work is done, and that we can bill them, because we have still costs in Azure and we need to maybe scale up the whole solution so that it's still working properly and fast. Yeah, okay. Better? Is it? So I just start to talk and then we'll see. So just to give 2 use cases that we had that were derived from that evaluation, or the other way around, the evaluation was derived from these use cases. There were more use cases, but there are specific ones. One was the mergers and acquisitions department. That was a very important one. Mergers and acquisitions, I think usually every big company has this department, and that they're taking care of basically buying and shopping new small companies to get new technology and new ideas into their company. But there is a process behind it. And their process was mainly analog. So really having a document, printing it out, writing information on it, signing something, and that should be digitalized. And that was done also in O365 using SharePoint and using some workflows. And at the end, of course, there should be a document generated. In this case, it would be a contract that is still at this point physically signed, printed out, but physically signed, but later on could be digitally signed also. That's one use case. Another use case is this department, the IT department, has a service catalog, digital service catalog, which provides for any other department a list of applications or services that we provide, and they could buy or could purchase to be used. So in this application, of course, has also inquiries and invoices generated from HTML pages into HTML pages, and of course we want to convert them. This application at the time used iText already, and the iText SDK, and there already was the motivation behind from also this one, that of course iText is good for developers, they liked it to use it, but we cannot ensure that they use it in a way we would like to. So we would like to have more control over that. And also there was a prediction that now it would be this year, demand of 10 to 15 new migrated applications. We just started last year to build up all the department for the new Microsoft technologies, and this is now starting to grow. And when I was employed, they said there will be around 5,000 to 8,000 Lotus Notes applications that need to be migrated, and 1,000 of them are critical for the business around that point. We don't know exactly how much applications there are because the departments created themselves, but this is how you see that. Of course, there are many also that of course use PDF conversion. So how did we approach the evaluation? We approached it in a way that we had a two-phased evaluation. First, we analyzed the market. So it was basically just search for certain product solutions that we want to analyze. And we searched to the marketing material and also to the documentation to find out, just in theory, not by testing the application itself, to find out what fits for us. So we were pretty open for that. We searched for full-blown service solutions in enterprise businesses down to just SDKs, because we wanted to check, can we also manage to, for example, buy an SDK and build the PDF conversion server ourselves in Azure or on the cloud or on-premise or anywhere. So we want to be open with that. But also, of course, we cannot overlook the whole market. So we chose basically what was visible within a short period of time for us to be analyzed. And that came for us to 5 different vendors. And each vendor, of course, has different products. So we evaluated all products from these vendors. I think many of them you would know. I saw some iText speakers here. And also we analyzed that we have like around 30 requirements that this application should fulfill, or that we will check for these solutions. And then we would then find a result to be able to get into the phase 2. That would be then testing the solution. So we decided that we would, at the end of phase 1, decide for 2 solutions to install and test thoroughly, and then get to a point there where we can also then buy the solution and implement and start implementing everything. So just to be complete, this is a more technical, just for later on when somebody is always, when you try to test physically in a machine, you want to give the specification that we use. Just to mention, the machines that we use were completely built up in Azure. And we came to 2 solutions, and that were I just go back, that were from Foxit, the rendition server, and the other one was from Docs42, that was an Docs42 enterprise server. And for that we had 2 isolated solutions in our development environment, which is also living in Azure in the cloud. And we had these 2 VMs, and if some of you recognize the performance of the machine, they're not very performant for servers, so we didn't care too much about the performance, how fast it was converting. We were more worrying about the functionalities, how much they can do for us and how much time they can save us compared to developing everything ourselves. So that's basically just for registration. So the Foxit rendition server, we used one. Basically, I just explained what the rendition server is. The rendition server, basically the architecture is that you have a web service that you call, that you consume, and you have a managing node that actually takes care of the orchestration of all the requests and all the conversions. And the management node sends it to a worker node that do the real hard work, that convert all these PDFs in a way and then spits them out, and then the application can use it. And the Docs42 server is just one normal server that takes the requests and is like first in, first out. So the first document that comes in gets converted. The last document that comes out doesn't comes in, gets converted last. Where the Foxit rendition server has a kind of queue. That means that you can stack up all the requests and they will be processed within time. So now I get a very big picture of how we actually would like to have the PDF solution implemented in our infrastructure at Schindler. But this is basically, that doesn't only apply to Schindler. That could apply to any company that use hybrid solution for cloud and on-premise. So that means Schindler has a on-premise network. It's Swisscom. They host many things like identity management and many software in Swisscom network. And also we have Azure. So the company had a so-called enterprise agreement with Microsoft. That means they take a huge volume in Azure, so they can really produce some products and some services there. With that, certain services from the cloud can connect into the network, but most of the network is closed for anything coming from outside. So usually the inside is getting to the outside, not the other way around. Then we had, of course, our on-premise applications that were usually living on clients, on servers, and everything inside of the Swisscom network with physical machines. And we also had O365 from Microsoft, the SharePoint Online, Office Online, everything that you can think of, and the OneDrive. Maybe some heard of it. It's Dropbox just for Microsoft, and that is hosted in Azure. That is basically the production version that is hosted there, and this part has direct connection to the Swisscom network. But we also have the development environment. So we have like 10 SharePoint machines, each machine for one developer that can really develop in the cloud, so they don't develop on a computer on the workplace. They rather connect to it and then they develop there. We have this is completely disconnected for security reasons, so from there you can never get either to Office 365 easily or to the internal network. So because they develop on these systems and nothing should get out when it's just a beta version or anything that is not finished. And within that, we would have a development PDF conversion server that is used for tests and also for development that is freely to use. This server can even break. We have automated backups, so we can restore everything, and it doesn't matter if the backup is very old, because usually it's just development. It shouldn't be anything productive on there. But of course, we would have a copy, like it would have as close as possible to the production version of the server, which would live inside Swisscom at the time. So I don't know, because Schindler changed before I left, they changed to a paradigm cloud first, to have as many applications as possible developed in the cloud. So it could also be possible that they would shift also to have a production server in the cloud. And to say, when we installed these two solutions in the cloud, it wasn't sure if they would work there. So the rendition server and Docs42 enterprise server, but actually with the VM there was no problem. You could even connect from the outside to it if you wanted to. And it was pretty easy to set up both solutions. For me, I did it within 2 to 3 hours, and it worked perfectly. To the connection to the dev environment. So that was not too much of a surprise for me, but still you could have run into problems. The thing is, when we evaluated everything, of course we had some results of the two phases. To just give you the ones that you see here, we had two different ways of evaluate the first phase. The first phase was evaluated in two different kinds of ways. The first one was to see all the requirements, if they were fulfilled for the certain solution, and then we weighted this requirement with a certain number. So if we thought the requirement, for example, a failover or load balancer, or the extensibility of, so it means like, can a developer easily extend the solution by themselves with custom solutions? We thought that is pretty important, so we put it on a weight so that it's more important than, for example, if it can input from data from SAP, for example, or if we have to do it ourselves. So that was not too important. And we saw already from the analysis of the market that the rendition server, that's where you see how the solution, how we came to the decision that the rendition server was nearly the top one, and so nearly had full points, and the Docs42 server was the second one. And of course, within that, we had the process during the evaluation that we don't want to use an SDK because there are a whole lot of problems connected to that. And we also identified some risks, and also we did a risk matrix to see what would happen to use a server, full-blown server that offers everything compared to program everything ourselves. And that's why you also see here, it also already reflects that you have like the PDF SDK from Foxit, even the PDF toolkit, and that there are missing features and raising risks. So that's why they are already have less points here. But there is a second part into that evaluation. The second part was more a subjective one, a very subjective one. I did the main analysis and I put all the information together and gave it also to one of our architects and to other 2 developers. So I'm one of the 3 developers, and they should do a rating after testing the solution and reading over the material, because when you evaluate the product, you want to not just make sure that it's good, but also that developers are able to use it and like to use it. It doesn't make sense if you have all features included, but then they say, I don't like it. Maybe you can force them, but then they're not very motivated, and that would be kind of hint how other department would think about that. And that's why you see also from a developer point of view, they like to program, they like to nerdy, they like to do everything themselves. They don't care about project times. That's for the project manager. And that's why you see that PDF SDKs have the same points like the Docs Enterprise server. So that's why you see higher things. And the rating was from 0 to 3. It means like 0, I don't like it at all. I cannot use it. I wouldn't recommend it. And 3 is like, that's top. And the developers really could easily use the rendition server in this case. And they still said that the Docs Enterprise server is pretty good because it has a very powerful template engine. Just to give an example, they made add-ins for the Office suite, like Excel, PowerPoint, and Word, where you can create with an Office document a template, put it into the server, and then fill the data from any data source you want. They had easy connections to SAP, to SharePoint, and everything, but the usability was not the best, because we could not extend it. So it was not flexible enough for us. There was a point where you could extend it, but only in the point of where the data comes from. But with the rendition server, we had more flexibility because the rendition server works in a way that is called assembly line. So basically, it's a line of modules. Like one module takes care about PDFA, the other one about OCR and all these different functionalities. And you could hook, as a developer, you could hook in after and before each module. So you could choose where you want to change things or add things. With the Docs 42 Enterprise server, we could just before it starts, and that's it, nothing in between. And there were much more documentation, more possibilities. So we didn't care too much about where the data comes from, but more about how we can extend the server. And also built in the rendition server compared to the Docs 42 server, they have a queue, so-called queue. So that's easier. So the rendition server itself manages how and when to solve the work of conversion. And also within that, we also had, of course, failover and load balancing already included in the server. Of course, with Docs 42 Enterprise server, load balancing is still a good thing to implement and not hard to do, but you still need to do it yourself. Yeah, and at the end, we still had the problem that the management, as I've said before, they want to have the risk matrix to estimate, because it's still a full-blown server solution, still has initial cost and yearly cost, and they want to have somehow an estimation on, hey, if I give you 3 months, how probable is it that you could do it, to do this server yourself or a part of it. So what we did, of course, is a matrix to give some 5-level probabilities of risks if they would occur, from rare to certain. And we identified things like what would happen if we don't take a full server solution in case of, for example, there's a risk of failover. We need to take care about failover ourselves. The rendition server, for example, takes care of it with the managing node. If like you have 3 worker nodes and 2 worker nodes fail, still 1 worker node is there. We would need to implement this ourselves if we use an SDK. So this is kind of a problem, meaning we don't have to manage these things. And also there was a description connected to it to explain to the management in a non-technical way what would happen and what is the impact about this. Yeah, and basically the risk derived from the motivation itself. So it's kind of circle. It's kind of no-brainer, at least for the risk, because we had a certain idea to do how to do it. And at the end there came a document, 20 pages for the management to decide. I cannot actually tell what the decision is because I left before they decided what to do, but they got a full report about it, and yes. So that is my experience report about this use case. If you have questions specifically, then I'm ready.